don't know if it's worth a major conversation, but Andrew Marchand, formerly of the New York Post, now at The Athletic, he does a lot of like the breaking news when it comes to like media contracts and all of that and people getting fired or let go. ESPN and NFL Network, they did this big merger, Joe. I know the last couple months we've been talking about other stuff, but that's kind of been laying in the weeds. And it's kind of finalized now. And there's been a lot of layoffs. It's been kind of a massacre over at the worldwide leader in sports. Karl Ravech, after 3 decades, gone. Tom Pelissero, who's been on our airwaves many a times, NFL Network senior insider, gone. Charles Davis, gone. Stefania Bell, gone. Cam Newton, also laid off by ESPN.
Why? You seem almost surprised with some of these names.
I'm not surprised. It's just a lot of people just getting the axe right now. And for a long time, it felt like ESPN was like the safety net. Everyone would go there and, they find their role. And I'm not saying they're without, their own cost cutting, because everyone's cost cutting right now. Ryan Clark was a big storyline yesterday. Another guy kind of started off this chain reaction of all these layoffs over at ESPN. Ryan Clark's been there for a very long time. And at one point was highly thought of as an analyst. I enjoyed his insight. And then it felt like he started buying into the first take, get up kind of zone of opinions and the Stephen A. Smith-ism of everything. And, he clapped at one Peter Schrager last year, who's another guy that jumped over from the NFL Network. And he kind of tried to talk down on him because he wasn't a former player. And that was a bad look for Ryan Clark. And according to reports, that played a factor in him getting let go yesterday. By the way, mid-show, he got the axe and got the call. He was doing a breakdown of why he thinks or doesn't think the Dallas Cowboys are a Super Bowl contender. Gets off air, gets the call. Bye-bye, see you later. And I guess they did that because they thought the leaks were going to come out and he was going to see it.
Okay, so
I don't know if there's a question.
Karl Ravech makes me sad because he's been there for so long. Yeah. I mean, 33 years in any profession is an incredible run.
And I identify him as the baseball guy.
Me too.
He was the baseball guy. Baseball
but I don't
Tonight.
think he was. They pay these guys, and then sometimes they take them out of what they're best at, studio and studio kind of like host.
Yes.
And then they put him in play-by-play. He's not a play-by-play guy.
He's not.
He's just not.
Yeah.
Karl Ravech is boring on play-by-play.
Yeah. He doesn't offer anything.
Skill set.
Yeah.
But he's really good as a studio host.
But those guys
they don't do those shows.
They don't do those shows, and
Joe,
also
I can't remember the last time I tuned into ESPN to care about anything, Scott Van Pelt included. And I like Scott Van Pelt as a person. I never was in on the Scott Van Pelt, Ryan Russillo show.
It was more college football based too. I was like, eh.
I don't. And again, I like Scott Van Pelt. Like, I like him, but I don't watch SportsCenter. I don't watch the shows. And it's not that I'm better than. It's just, it's not a part of my habit anymore. ESPN was a huge part of my habit. It is not now. Now it's YouTube. I'm scrolling through YouTube. I'm scrolling through The Athletic. I'm scrolling through whatever hits my phone. I don't watch anything. Like, so for example, when we get a Shams Charania or Windy update and I have to click on the ESPN thing and then I have to wait for it to load, then I have to go to the article and then I have to watch the video or read the article.
Yeah.
Like, none of that. I don't consume it in the traditional keep the TV on fashion.
No.
At all.
Well,
now, maybe I'm a dinosaur, but I believe that their entire business model has been broken for a long time.
What is the business model? Just,
it should be games.
Just games, that's it?
Goes old school, games, a couple of shows, and, like the Pat McAfee show.
Kind of what they've been doing, right? Like, what are the shows that they have on right now? Just so First Take, Get Up. No, that's what I'm saying. Get Up, First Take, and then Pat McAfee show. That's kind of it. They have PTI, but they got rid of Around the Horn. They tried to do stuff in between that. Didn't really work.
Those shows have gone.
Center, but SportsCenter doesn't make sense anymore because I have all the highlights I need at the palm of my right in my hand. I see all of them
100%.
on my algorithm already.
Like, here's a great example. Like, they, on Get Up, and I'm not trying to denigrate her in any way, but like Courtney Cronin's on there, and we know Courtney Cronin because she covered the Warriors for a small period of time out here, and I see all of these things. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything. I just don't care what she has to say. In the same way, and I'm using her as an example, I just don't care what Cam Newton has to say.
Okay,
I just really don't. And I'm not trying to be a jerk on that. Like, I'm giving you ex-former athlete MVP, and I'm giving you random journalists on the spectrum. I just don't. I'm not entertained by them, nor am I finding any intrigue in what they're saying.
What does give you intrigue?
Like Wilbon, like PTI. You brought up PTI.
Yeah, PTI, because that's still there.
I like Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser together. I like them together. That's why I like that show. I enjoyed them together. I don't like Wilbon by himself. I don't like Tony Kornheiser by himself.
They tried that, right?
Yeah, and I don't like them. I like them together, you know? That was a great show. And maybe it's lost its luster in
It's been on for 25 years.
It's great. It's a seminal, it has grounded my journalistic sports opinion giving self.
Yeah.
It is one of the gold standards in my eyes. ESPN though, as a brand, dude, couple of pregame shows, broadcast the games, have a decent postgame show. I mean, I can't remember the last time I actually stuck on after a game ended and SVP was interviewing an athlete, and I was like, yeah, I'll stay here for an extra 5 or 10 minutes after he's interviewed the athlete who just finished the game. What I like, the only SVP that I like after the game, I'm talking about, because that's This is Sports Center right after the game, is when he has Tim Legler on right after a basketball game.
Yes.
Why? Because I love Legler.
Well, that's how
I love Legler.
That's how Ryan Clark kind of made his bones. He was that guy after Sunday Night Football with SVP.
Yeah.
And when Ryan Clark,
I don't like Ryan Clark.
No, I know.
He's not likable.
No, well, early on, I think he was a legit analyst. I actually enjoyed his X's and O's breakdown. But again, Joe, this is what I said earlier.
I prefer Dan Orlovsky better.
That's fine.
And I don't even like Orlovsky.
But this was even before Orlovsky.
No, I know. But I'm saying you're asking me okay, for example.
They start going on the Get Up First Take shows.
Oversaturate.
But then it becomes more opinions than the X's and O's.
Yes.
Which is where that loses me.
There are people there that I really, really like. No, on ESPN. But I'm not searching out ESPN for content anymore. No. I'm just not. I just don't.
Well, all our content comes from the other podcasts from elsewhere.
And Instagram.
And Instagram or whoever, if you have your individual,
Shorts.
Even Ryan Clark himself. He has the Pivot podcast?
I don't care about it.
You don't, but they get a lot of famous people on there, and there's a lot of clips that you listen to.
I think that podcast did more harm for how I view Ryan Clark than him on TV.
Well, probably
because I didn't watch him on TV.
Well, and that might have played a factor in him getting the axe, as well as what he said to Peter Schrager. This is almost a year ago. This was during the NFL regular season, him going at Peter Schrager, for not being a player in the NFL.
He's had a better day than CeeDee Lamb.
You know what you wake up saying, though? A.J. Brown's team is 1-0.
Of course.
Right, that's what
I get it.
But the thing is this, though, and we shouldn't do this on TV. And so I apologize if people think this is rude. That's the non-player.
Oh, stop. CeeDee Lamb is
let me tell you why. I'm not looking at fantasy football.
Ryan, I'm not. Don't belittle me like that. I could come in and say, as 3 ex-players are saying one thing, and give an alternative perspective that maybe CeeDee Lamb did play well. And
Peter, what I need for you to do is not get mad and let me finish for one.
Okay, go on.
It wasn't about you. It was going to be about me.
Okay.
And that played a factor, according to reports, in him getting the axe, was him going at Peter Schrager and calling him out for saying that's the non-player in you. Because the moment you go there, you're basically saying his opinion doesn't matter about the sport.
Do you know how many athletes?
And you're undercutting a guy who's supposed to be your teammate at ESPN, and that's just not a good look.
But I guess when people do the "you never played" card at the highest level, do you know how many athletes who did play at the highest level are giving you crap?
You just mentioned Joe Montana.
He was terrible.
He was horrible.
And he's one of the greatest quarterbacks who ever lived. Ever lived. Drew Brees was a horrible, horrible announcer.
He was not good.
Okay, but if we're just going to talk about who knows football more, in this exercise, Dan Orlovsky or Drew Brees, who's better on TV?
Orlovsky.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
Right? But does that mean that I don't respect Drew Brees' opinion? Of course I do, but he's just not good on TV. The problem with ESPN is that I don't think they know what they want to be. Do they want to be a journalistic wing? Do they want to be an entertainment wing? Do they try to satisfy all needs simultaneously? Do they want to just, broadcast games?
All these networks, it's about broadcasting the games first and foremost and getting those television contracts. That's what it's about. There's going to be a big pivot now, no pun intended to the podcast, but in 4 years, the World Cup rights are up. So in 4 more years, you're going to see ESPN, Fox, and Netflix. Those are the big 3 that I'm seeing try to battle out to get the rights for the World Cup because they just saw buku numbers in the United States for it. So that's going to be so to your point, what's the next stage for ESPN? I think it's the college football playoff. They have the Super Bowl next year, Joe. It's about getting back to the games themselves. I think that's the smart move. But again, when you're paying Pat McAfee $60+ million a year and Stephen A. Smith probably $60+ million a year, you're also telling me you're in the opinionated business too. And I'm just not going there for Stephen A. Smith's opinion anymore.
I actually disagree with you. I don't think McAfee is giving opinions. I don't. I actually think the bulk of his show is having fun and celebrating sports.
Let me be clear. That's more of a Stephen A. Smith is the opinions. Yes.
And I actually misdiagnosed because now I watch a lot of McAfee. I do. I actually misdiagnosed that show. If you watch the show, like occasionally, okay, you don't have to watch it every day. Really what he does, he brings on a lot of different experts and they celebrate sports. Like that's the bulk of the show. Occasionally he'll give you his opinion on this guy and that guy and this athlete and that athlete and whatever. But I actually think that his show actually celebrates sports. Whereas this is my personal opinion. I feel like Stephen A. Smith hates everybody in sports. When was the last time Stephen A. celebrated anybody?
The Knicks, because he's a self-serving Knicks fan. No, I'm serious. Like
he made it about himself.
He did, and he apologized to the players, and they had him on, and it was Brunson and Kat and everyone, and they all had a kumbaya session. But you're right, and this goes back to
Stephen A. Smith. If you bring on Adam Schefter, if you bring on Shams, Stephen A. Smith, I'm part of that panel, will almost attack that individual. Whereas when Pat McAfee has them on, I'm just going the difference of the two shows. When Pat has them on, he's asking questions, and that person is comfortable and calm. Okay,
maybe people like Stephen A. when he does that. Maybe he's being rewarded. Joe, there's a reason they're paying him that money because clearly they have it in their algorithm.
There are a lot of people
that Stephen A. means numbers. Whether we agree or not.
He rates. Yeah. It's just not my cup of tea.
Not mine either.
You know?
It used to be like when First Take first started being a thing with him and Skip. God, this is what, circa 2008, 2007-ish? Like that was like, wow, embrace debate. It was really fun. But then the problem was, Joe, ESPN made that their entire ethos for a while.
Yes.
And it ruined the product.
I agree.
It was too much of a good thing. And then it became almost like, okay, I knew this was shtick a little bit, but like I was still like having like a good time because I thought like the content was interesting and these different angles were interesting. And then they started like smelling their own farts and like they loved it. No, I'm serious. Like that's kind of what it was.
Skip and Stephen A. are almost synonymous to me.
Yes.
Right? They're one and the same in terms of the playbook. And I can't stand Skip Bayless.
No, he's done.
I just can't stand him.
Skip's done.
Yeah.
It's over with him, Carter.
Well, honestly, too, I think when ESPN kind of took over, when Disney kind of took over ESPN, they really planted themselves in the product. And I think now, if you guys follow SportsCenter on Instagram, like so little of it is actually sports. It's just internet videos.
Yes.
And it's just kind of like, this isn't why I follow SportsCenter.
Well, the other thing is that, again, these are just my interpretations. The Pat McAfee show is almost like a goofball college frat show. And I didn't even go to college, and I didn't get it at first. It's not Barstool. Barstool's its own.
Well, he came from Barstool, so
I know, but he's not. He's an offshoot, but he's not. It's actually more friendly than I thought it was. But like, I don't agree with everything he says, and I don't love everything he says. I think he's been a pleasant surprise on game day. I was very skeptical. I actually like him on game day. He does his homework.
He desperately. It was getting stale a little bit.
He gives you the Lee Corso element.
He needs it. Yes.
Yeah,
they need
like
it. Excuse me.
You know, whereas like I just think Stephen A. takes himself way too seriously.
Yeah, it's too much Stephen A. Again,
it's just 100%.
It's been too
what
much
you said
Stephen
is
A.
exactly correct.
It's too much Stephen A. And now. Unfortunately, I think it's eventually going to get too much Pat McAfee because this is what happens. Too much of a good thing. You're going to pay him all this money, and this is what happened with Stephen A. Keep him at First Take, and maybe he chimes in some other things. But the problem is when you're paying someone that much money, Joe, what are you going to expect out of them? You got to be here. You got to be doing that. You got to be doing this. You got to do that. And like we were talking about Tom Brady earlier, too much of a good thing. You're going to be dipping your hand into too many things in too many wheelhouses. I'm going to be tired of seeing you on my television screen because the fan width is going to be too much. I just take a step back.
There's a happy medium of not overexposing yourself.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Monte with this because I think he's a perfect person to ask. He's being part of the media too, the radio side, the television side, all of it. He's going to be joining us in about 19 minutes for the entire hour. Yeah.
There was a time where I tapped in on Stephen A. and Skip, and I laughed, and that was fun or whatever. There was a time I despised the Pat McAfee show, and then the more and more it grew on me, I was like, all right, you know what? I kind of get what his shtick is and what his angle is. And it's not bad. And I get what he's doing, but I'm not as tired of him as I am of Stephen A. Smith. I'm tired of Stephen A. Smith.
I don't know what ESPN is anymore and what they want to be. And I'm curious how people feel about ESPN. If they even tune in anymore when it comes to their everyday programming, 888-957-9570.
It's primarily games.
It's games for me as well. And listen, they got the college football playoff. They got a lot of big things. They're going to have the Super Bowl next year.